Hey folks, a few weeks back the news circulated that GoXLR had let go of their support and development staff for their products. As someone who used the GoXLR Mini for streaming, I had a decision to make. Ride out the GoXLR and see if it got ongoing support from the modding community, or make the swap to a different audio device to handle my streaming setup. I personally chose to go to the Rodecaster Duo for reasons that I'll talk about briefly. But as I was doing my research, I found that there were a few questions that I just couldn't find the answers to. So I decided to sit down and make a quick video outlining the things I've figured out now that I've had the Duo in my hands for a week or so. So I guess the first question is, why Rode? I had pretty much narrowed down my search to the three kind of main things that people talk about when they're making this switch, and that's the Rode, the Beacon, or the Elgato. The primary concern for me was that I already have an SM7B, and I wanted to use that without having too many things sitting on my desk. And of the three, Rode was the one that fit that bill, as most of the other ones are all USB connections. Rode has been supporting their devices pretty well over the last year or so, and it has a pretty solid reputation as a company, so I felt pretty comfortable making that switch. I'm sure each of the other solutions has their own advantages and disadvantages, but since I chose Rode, that's what this video is going to focus on. For those of you who are just stopping by for a quick summary, here's kind of my top level thoughts. The Rode Duo it's a lot of kit, and it will do pretty much everything that I need it to do. And then it comes with a suite of tools that are pretty handy and fun to mess about with. So the setup for the device was pretty easy, and learning it was also pretty seamless. And as far as downsides go, the only thing that really affected me in a negative way is there's no way to have a separate routing table profile that you can swap around on the fly like you can with the GoXLR. And you can't use the Stream Deck to control the Duo directly. So that's kind of an issue. But before we jump into more of my deeper thoughts, let's just take a quick look at how my setup was connected when I was using the GoXLR Mini, and we'll expand from there. So I run a 2 PC streaming setup, and I also have my PS5 wired into the entire setup so that I don't have to unplug or rewire or reconnect things when I want to stream games either on my PlayStation or on my PC. There is one extra step that has to do with how the PS5 handles audio, but it's solved with a pretty inexpensive device, and once it's set up, it's super easy to manage, so we'll start there. So the PS5 is connected to an audio extractor via HDMI. The outputs from the audio extractor, the red audio cable here, is an optical cable, and then the video cable is just another HDMI. So that goes into a HDMI switch. The two inputs for the HDMI switch are the PlayStation from the audio extractor and the gaming PC. From the switch, it goes out to the streaming PC and just allows me with a toggle to swap between the two streaming devices. And essentially what that is for is to allow me to have a dedicated fader for the audio that is coming from the PlayStation, so that I don't have to handle that through OBS or capture software or anything like that. So it gives me a little bit of flexibility on the fly. So the SM7B also connected here. Went through a cloud lifter before going to the GoXLR, and that's just because the GoXLR doesn't have a preamp for your microphone. The GoXLR, when I was using it, was connected directly to my gaming PC, which in retrospect was probably not the optimal way to do it, but that's how I had it set up, so that's how we're going to talk about it here. Because that meant that all of the additional audio channels that you got with the GoXLR were all on the gaming PC. That means that I ran Spotify and Discord on my gaming PC rather than on my streaming PC. So my streaming PC was also connected to the GoXLR. This was done, or headphone cable, and then the audio out routed from the GoXLR to two destinations. One is my monitor headphones, and the other is back to the streaming PC. And that line was the dedicated audio for the stream. So that came from the GoXLR to the line in on the streaming PC. Okay, so that's where we started. And then I was doing some research before I ordered the Rodecaster, and I was doing some preliminary mental wiring in my head before the device arrived. And I realized that I was going to need an RCA to quarter-inch headphone jack, quarter-inch audio connection, and then I needed two that were the 3.5 millimeter to the quarter-inch cable, and that would allow me to have the audio from the Duo wired in a way that was super familiar to me because it would be very similar to how I handled the audio in the GOXLR. Okay, so how did the setup go? Once I had everything plugged in, I really only had to do basically just two things. The first was go into the microphone 1 setting on the Rodecaster and choose the preset for the SM7B for my microphone channel 1. Once that was done, everything pretty much just worked. I didn't really touch a whole lot of things. I streamed that like literally like an hour later, and other than the little bit of a snafu with the audio from the PlayStation, it just completely worked out of the box. I didn't have to mess with any levels or touch anything. There was a little bit of tweaks with stream volume, but other than that, it was super easy, and it basically worked exactly the way I wanted it to right out of the box. So here's the wiring diagram once I made the swap over to the Rodecaster Duo. So the Duo only has 3 audio channels that run to and from it. That being said, the audio channels are bi-directional. So each one acts as an in and an out rather than one or the other. This, for me, was my biggest concern when I was making the switch from the GOXLR to the Duo, just because the GOXLR has so many audio inputs that you can set on your computer that I wasn't sure whether I was going to need a secondary dedicated software suite to handle all of the additional audio routing. Because the audio channels in the Rode are bi-directional, I haven't needed that so far. There are a few small workarounds that I've had to kind of put in place to work around that, but I think those are more for convenience than necessity. So we'll go through the diagram here real quick. The PlayStation still routed to the audio extractor. The audio, rather than coming out via an optical cable, because the Rodecaster doesn't have an optical in, now runs on the RCA out on the extractor, and this is where the RCA to quarter-inch plug comes in that I spoke about a second ago. So I have chosen to run that into the microphone 2 slot on the back of the Rodecaster. Again, that is to give me a dedicated fader for the audio that comes from the PlayStation. We did have a little bit of an interesting time. I originally had it set up as a line in, and that put something on the audio channel that made the sound really wonky. But when I swapped it over to a different preset, it was totally fine. I have switched the HDMI switch here has been replaced. This is, again, it's a convenience thing for me, not a necessity. This one has a remote control and it's powered, so there's a little bit less incidence of signal loss for me, especially when I switch between the inputs. Other than that, functionally, it is completely the same. It also has, the new one has a third HDMI in, so I have a little bit more expansion if I want to put a switch on there or what have you. So that's really good. The Shure SM7B, obviously, we're still using that. Interesting thing here is because there is a preamp on the microphone jacks on the Rode, you no longer need the cloud lifter. So that was super convenient. The Rodecaster is now connected via USB-C to both my gaming PC and my stream PC. So there are obviously 2 USB-C connections on the back of the Rodecaster. USB 1 also comes coupled with a channel that Rode recommends that you use for your voice chat. So whatever computer is plugged into USB 1 will pretty much be where you run your Discord or your voice chat. So I have chosen to move that to my stream PC because I was really trying to get all of the workload off of my gaming PC so that it could do just that, and then move everything else to my stream PC. So USB 1 is connected to my stream PC, USB 2 to the gaming PC. The Rodecaster has 2 headphone monitoring jacks, both 1/4 inch, which is why we needed the 2 adapters from 1/4 inch to 3.5 millimeter. Headphone 1 goes to my monitor, which is my headphones, obviously. And then headphone 2 runs out to the line in for my stream PC. Now, obvious question is, if you're already connected there, why aren't you just using the audio channel that comes through the USB? The reason that I'm doing that is because the audio out via the headphone gives me a dedicated place where only the audio that I want to go to the stream lives. If you can see it in the tiny picture here, there's 2 small dials here, and those control the headphone audio. So I actually have a manual dial that I can use to turn the main stream volume up and down, as well as my headphone volume up and down. So it makes it super easy to kind of tinker around with audio levels and those kinds of things. And then obviously the stream PC goes out to the interwebs for what it's worth. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you're giving up. So currently there's no way, as I mentioned at the top, to adjust your routing tables without opening the routing table in the software or on the desktop. Now, the desktop software is totally optional. The Duo is designed to be able to function anywhere without needing to be connected to a computer. So if you just wanted to do like a 2-person interview at Starbucks, you can literally take the Duo with you, take 2 headphones and 2 microphones, set it up, and you can record everything on board on the fly without needing anything else. I will not use it for that, but it is pretty cool. But what that means is you can't, if you have different routing tables for different periods of your stream, as an example, if you do an intro section and you don't want your microphone on your stream audio, you can't route it to your monitor without opening the routing table and making the adjustment to the routing table on the fly. You can do that. It's not particularly difficult, but that coupled with the fact that you can't control the Rode with your Stream Deck means, at least the way that I had it set up, is I push a button, it puts the OBS scene that I want, it puts the routing table that I want, and then everything you continue to go forward. The Stream Deck will still obviously do all of the stuff with OBS that you want it to, but you can't change the routing externally in any way. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. This is the Rode software. I generally only use this for me at the start of my stream, and I usually only use it for one thing, and that is the routing table. So if you are used to the routing table on the GOXLR, this is going to look a little weird. It's very simple once you wrap your head around it, but essentially you have to set the routing table per output. So this is the monitor headphone out. This is all of your ins. If it's lit, it's routing to that one. I don't have the Bluetooth going to my stream, so I simply turn this fader off with this output selected. You can use the main mix, you can do custom mixes, you can do kind of whatever you want. These will work on the fly. So if you have something running and you need to mute Discord or something like that, you can just stream doesn't need to hear Discord. Now they don't. Click it back on, all good. So there are 2 other settings on these inputs. I call this in my head linked, unlinked, and muted. So linked, this functions just like a normal fader. It turns the main input volume for this the main input up or down across all of your channels. If you switch this to unlinked and you start messing with your fader, it's only going to change the audio for that channel for this output for this input if these are unlinked. So if you want to turn your Discord down for your stream and you want it louder in your head, or for the same for games in your headphones, stuff like that, it's pretty straightforward to do. The problem that I have with this is you have to be in this menu either in your software or in your Rodecaster in order to make these adjustments. I do want to take one quick second and talk about shows on the Duo versus profiles on the GOXLR. This was one of the things that I was looking for information on when I was doing research for switching to Rode. I had thought before I put my hands on the Rodecaster that these would be fairly interchangeable, and that I could set up a show, it would have a routing table on it, and then I would just switch shows in the same way that I switched profiles, and it would adjust that routing table individually. That is not how it works. Saving shows in your Rodecaster, and I'm going to do a little bit of a callback here. If you were at Starbucks and you did you set everything up, you did the recording, what you would do if you wanted to get that interview off of your Rodecaster is you would export the show, and it would export the audio, all of the settings, and everything else. There is no way to back up just the audio settings aside from aside from the show itself, or the interview, or the recording itself. So a little bit of a bummer there. That brings me to some of the cool and fun things that you can do with the Rodecaster. I am not going to dive deeply in this video into how you do those things, because this is not going to be the thing that particularly tips anybody over the edge of choosing this device over another. But you can do some very cool things. There's a voice changer that is built in, so you can do fun things
with your voice on the fly. The
thing that I find interesting about that is I know people that I have seen who used the voice changer on the GOXLR, they could not hear the voice changer on their monitor headphones, and you can with the Rodecaster. The other kind of cool things with the voice changer is you can actually change it on the fly. So it's not something you have to do like a preset or anything like that. You can literally just sit down, start
tinkering with how the knobs go, and do everything on the fly,
which is kind of fun. It's certainly not a deal breaker, but it does make for some for some fun interactions sometimes. So I have a good time with it. Also, the Rode has its own power button, so you actually don't have a device sitting on your desk glowing in the middle of the night that you can't turn off without turning your computer on, which is very nice. It also has a Bluetooth connection, so you can actually route in your phone. And I haven't tested this, but according to the way everything is set up, you could actually call somebody on your cell phone and then loop them into your Discord channel, onto your stream. If you do podcasting, stuff like that, you could use those for like super easily. Just instead of having somebody get into Discord, you can just pop your cell phone out and do it from there. Or you can run Spotify on your phone and play that over, so that you're not using an audio channel, and you have another dedicated fader for your Spotify if that's how you want to set it up. You can also run MIDI commands on the smart buttons to control OBS off of the Rodecaster. I personally haven't messed with that yet. It's kind of next on my list of things that I want to learn with the Rodecaster. A couple of the features, primarily the MIDI controls, do have a bit of a learning curve, but there's plenty of resources out there. And what little research I've done does make it seem like it's fairly easy to learn and set up. Also, as I talked about earlier, the microphone inputs have built-in amps, so you don't need your cloud lifter anymore. The headphone jacks also have amps on them, so if you have headphones that require an amp, those can go away if you switch to the Rode. So as I begin to wind up, I do want to make a few suggestions. First of all, as great as this software is, I think that the on-screen interface that you get with the Rodecaster is an incredibly powerful tool. And I would recommend, when you're learning your Rodecaster, do it on the Rodecaster. The software interface is a helpful tool, but learning the Rode is best done on the Rode itself. Second, as I think I talked about earlier, but there are 3 knobs in the upper right-hand corner of your Rodecaster. Those are really useful. The top 2, as I mentioned, are the headphone volume, so you can adjust those on the fly. The larger of the buttons is your fine select for things that you can't use faders on in the menu on the touchscreen that's on the Rodecaster. So get used to that. You can use that to adjust which is what I was using for adjusting the audio, the voice changer on the fly. That was done with that button. You can, if you push that button, you can switch between selections on the screens themselves and adjust things as you go. So this is advice for myself as well as for you, is check out the MIDI control on OBS. There is a way to set OBS to receive MIDI commands, and you can send MIDI commands from your Rodecaster. So using those two things in tandem will allow you to swap scenes and stuff like that from your Rodecaster. But with your Stream Deck, you can set up multi-actions, so that does a bunch of things when you push one button. The Rodecaster at this point doesn't have that. But for ease of use, if you want to just have something that swaps between you chatting with your stream and you streaming a game, you can make that swap from your Rodecaster. So, obviously, I'm committed to the Rode. So what would I like to see in the future? The answer is super simple, actually. I would like to see routing profiles that you can swap between on the fly in some way that is very easy. If you could save like just the audio settings to your Rodecaster and then swap between profiles on the fly with one push of your smart button, that would be fantastic. If they can't do that for some reason, if you could essentially if you could set a smart button so that you could map like, hey, I want for this output and this input, I would like to be able to sever and make that connection with one button click, also from the smart button. That would do the trick. A little more button pushing, but it would accomplish what I would like to see from it. And this would be the easiest one. Well, I don't want to say it's the easiest one, but this would be the most probably user-friendly one, is give it Stream Deck functionality. Allow it to communicate to and from your Stream Deck, and that would let us do a lot. So any one of those things would solve the major issue that I have, which is simply the inability to swap routing profiles on the fly. Other than that, I love the Rode. It's really a lot of fun to play with. The ability to record clips like audio clips on the fly. You can adjust them to fade in and fade out. You can adjust the clip length, and you can do all of that directly on your Rodecaster. So you could create an audio clip in 2 minutes once you learn how it works. It's pretty easy. Okay, so those are my thoughts on switching from the GOXLR Mini to the Rodecaster Duo. I hope it was helpful for you. Maybe there's some information you can glean, even if you're not switching from one to the other and you're just curious of how to get the PS5 set into your streaming audio. That is certainly one way to do it. So if it helped you out, I would appreciate you dropping a like on the video. If you have specific questions that I haven't answered here, you can drop the question in the comments. I will answer those the best that I can. And if I see a lot of the same questions popping up, or if people have a lot of interactions around one specific question and you'd like to see another video on how I handle things with the Rodecaster, you're more than welcome to do that. If you're impatient and you don't want to wait for the recycle time on getting back to you in the comments, I do live stream here on YouTube on Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8:30 to 11:30 p.m. Pacific time. I know that's not a super friendly time for a lot of people, but that's when I'm live. So, yeah. hope you have a great day, and thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and be kind to yourselves out there. The world needs a lot of that. Thanks.